Alrighty, hello everyone. Thank you guys for joining us. We're gonna wait just a little bit more just to see how many more people join in and to see if everyone can be like seated. I know that some people are from schools. I know that some people are tuning in from home. I know that it's a whole mixture. So we'll just wait a couple more seconds and then we will begin. I'm so excited for this one. Let's go, let's see. All right, so it looks like the little ticker is ticking up. So it's still coming in. Okay, we'll wait a couple more seconds. All right, maybe grab some water for everyone who's been here for the first 15. See what you can do. All righty, and it looks like we've leveled off. All right, so welcome to PMP Live. I'm so excited to have you all here, and I'm so excited to have the people that we are chatting with today. We are going to be chatting with Tami Charles and Bryan Collier for their new stunning and amazing picture book, All Because You Matter. Tami Charles is an author of both picture books of elementary fiction and YA novels. She has done it all the way across the board. Before professionally writing, she was a teacher. Her first novel, Like Vanessa, received multiple honors, and she's continued since to write in both poetic and humorous ways that bring diversity and hope across children's literature. Bryan Collier is a distinguished illustrator. One of his first picture books, Uptown, he earned both the Coretta Scott King Award as illustrator and the Ezra Jack Keats New Illustrator Award. He has earned many awards since then, including several Coretta Scott King Awards. His illustrating style brings warmth and detail to stories across America's history. It's truly stunning work. For today's event, you can ask the authors questions by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and then also questions that you want answered. Don't forget to make sure that the questions are related to the book or the author or the topics that we're talking about today. You can also click on the chat button to get your very own copy of the book. So don't forget to do that one. I'll direct you right back to the PMP website. All righty, now time for Tami and Bryan to take over. Have a blast, guys.
Thank you. All right, it's you and I again.
Yes.
Okay, so we are going to start this event by doing a read aloud of the book. And Bryan, will you show the art?
I'll show as you read.
Okay, awesome. But before I start, I want to show my favorite about this book is when you take the cover off. I love that. So I'm going to read it like this because that just never gets old for me. I love it. All right. All Because You Matter. Here we go. They say that matter is all things that make up the universe. Energy, stars, space. If that's the case, then you, dear child, matter. Long before you took your place in this world, you were dreamed of like a knapsack full of wishes carried on the backs of your ancestors as they created empires, pyramids, legacies. Building, inventing, working beneath red-hot suns and cold blue moons, thinking of you years ahead, because to them, you always mattered. On the night you were born, stars sprayed across the sky, each one full of light, hope, love, and all the moments in your life that would matter. Like your first steps, bare feet, planted on cold floor, hobbling, wobbling, toppling, only to stand and try again. Or your first words, spoken almost like a lullaby, notes climbing a ladder to the sky. Mama, papa, mahal kita. Or the first time you opened a book, like a mirror staring back at you, and really saw yourself. Same hair, same skin, same dreams. The words and pictures coming together like sweet jam on toast, música blasting through barrios, sun in blue sky, all because you matter. But in galaxies far away, it may seem that light does not always reach lonely planets, covered moons, stars unseen as if matter no longer exists. And just like moons hidden in the dark, there will be times when you too will question your place in the universe. Like the time you'll hear the teacher call your name, Hossam, Uzomaka, Yordanis, and the whispers and giggles begin, followed by, what kind of name is that? Or the time you'll see a letter, big, bold, red on the page, and you will question if you and your work and your effort matter. Or the time when your pop-pop turns on the news and you see people everywhere take a breath, take a stand, take a knee. And you hear your pop-pop's whispered prayers as another name is called, Trayvon, Tamir, Philando, and you wonder if they or you will ever matter. But did you know that you do? Did you know that you were born from queens, chiefs, legends? Did you know that you are the earth, that strength, power, and beauty lie within you? Did you know that you are sun rays, calm like ocean waves, tough like montañas, magic like stars in space? And on the day the universe was created, you were thought of, dreamed of, carried like a knapsack full of wishes as planets, stars, moons took their places, making room for you, your people, their dreams, your future. All because since the beginning of time, you mattered. They mattered. We matter and always will. That's it. Okay, so nice job, you too. So a little bit about the inspiration for this book. I was inspired to write this book. Well, first, I want to say that this is the book of my heart. That is literally my son's face on the cover. Something that I will eternally be grateful to Bryan for. This is like a true gift. But this is the book of my heart. But this was also a little bit kind of like the book I was afraid to write. I didn't want to write. And here's why. When I became a mom, you know, my whole world changed, as most parents experience. And then especially when I discovered that I was having a boy. I didn't know until he was born. There was this moment of, I just wanted to keep my little boy little forever, because in the outside world, outside of our happy bubble, there were things going on. There were bad, unfortunate, really an uprising of incidents of injustice. And I just did not want to have to talk about that with my son. So I kind of kept him shielded. I kept him protected for as long as I could. And then he entered school. And when he entered school, he met all types of children, made friends with so many people, which was amazing. He also experienced a few things and he learned a lot. And I remember one of his earliest questions that jarred me, and he was about 6 when this happened. He had learned about Dr. King, and his question to me was, well, Mom, if Dr. King wanted peace and if he was such a good guy, then why did the bad guys hurt him? And he was about 5 or 6 when this happened. So I remember thinking to myself, here we go. there it is. I need to start talking to my son about the realities of the world. And the reality is humanity is beautiful. Our world is beautiful. And people are beautiful too. There are good and bad people, but sometimes we experience moments where we are made to feel less than important. Or we may witness something in the media where it seems as if the people that we come from are being mistreated. So I knew I had to start having these conversations with him early on, but I wanted to come from a place of love. And I knew that the only way to do that was the best way that I could, which was to write my son a love letter, just to let him know that no matter what he sees in the headlines or online, no matter what he may experience that makes him feel less than, I want him to know that he matters. He matters because of his ancestors and the people who love him, the community of teachers and friends and family who loves him. I wanted him to know these are all the reasons why you matter. And if he grows up knowing that, then he can navigate life knowing his own self-worth. So I did write it for him, but this turned out to be so much broader than I expected, because I realized, well, what child doesn't need to hear that they matter? Like, yes, this is a message for my son, but this is also a message to all Black and brown children, children from marginalized communities. And in essence, it's a message for all children, because all children need to know how to treat each other, how to respect each other. Because one day, Bryan, you and I, we're going to be old.
Oh yeah, one day soon.
Soon, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And like, it's these kids who are going to take over the world. They're going to run our country and the world. And in order to do that, they need to know how to treat each other. And they need to recognize and uplift all kinds of voices. So that's when I realized the message and the theme of this is much broader than I ever imagined it to be. And this is something that I am truly proud of. The reception has been wonderful. And I love it when people can see the universality of the message and of the book. And I'm just so honored to work with you, Bryan. I was hoping that maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about your art and the process.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I agree with everything you said. And for me, the impact of the text, because that's what I started with, just the text. And what it did is it hit me on different levels. I mean, All Because You Matter zooms through time and space and speaks of ancestry, empowerment. It speaks of place and identity in the world, and the wonderful notion that you can tell a child, even before you were born, there's a place made for you in this world. Even before anybody, your friends knew you, anybody knew who you were. Somebody prayed for you and prayed out a space for you. And that's an incredible tool and gift to give to a young person, and to reinforce it to the adults as well. And that's what I really love about the book. So when I started, of course, I started with a single image, and I started painting these petals. Here's a sheet of them, of other ones that I've done. I started painting faces because they represent the voices of the prayers for this boy to come into this world. So I was following Tami through her birth, and these are the prayers of the ancestors and people that makes ways for all of us. And I started cutting these out, and I was going to use them. I didn't know how. And then we started with the storyline. I painted in watercolor and collage. And for me, I started making collages because I was influenced by my grandmother making quilts when I was a kid. So when you look at the artwork, you can look at the influence of a quilt maker, piecing these ideas together as a metaphor and making something whole. So that's what we're trying to do with it. So I started, I had the fortunate access to Tami and her son to pose for the book. So we went to a library and I took pictures. I don't know if the librarians there knew what we were doing. It looked, just taking pictures, like we look like tourists.
What's going on here?
Yeah, like tourists, you know. But I had already done a storyboard and I started taking pictures and I took all that information home. Now, Christopher was the perfect model. And I watched the way Tami and Christopher engaged with each other, the body language with each other, how comfortable they were. That's why I use families, because they're comfortable with each other and they do these wonderful gestures that speak beyond the text of love and connection. And so we started there and I started making this work. And it's so funny, once the book is done, what it does to the world out there, it speaks volumes and reinforces what most adults should know as we rear our children and bring them into the world. We want to empower them. We want them to be confident when they go into the world every day, that they are loved and they have a place for it. They belong and they're not alone. All those universal themes, all children know. And then you talk about what's happening in the world around us, about brutality and injustice and being mistreated, and you turn on the news and our kids need to be taught and explain those images and they tell the truth to them about it. You got to be a truth tellers about the world as well. So this is a beginning way to have that conversation with your kid. And then I said at the end, I want the kid to read it back to their parents or their teacher or their librarian or their guardian to remind them that they matter as well. Yeah. You know, that's the full circle profoundness of this book that I'm so happy. Let's look at it up close again. And the line, Tami, that really sticks with me forever is, this is how I autographed the book. I write it to the personalize it, and I said, "You're like a knapsack full of wishes."
Nice.
Because that's the one, that's the line, that's the phrase that I think for me, I levitated with. You know, it just blew me away.
Oh, love it.
And look at the beauty of that boy. Mm-hmm. That's universal beauty right there.
Yeah, he still my eyelashes, by the way.
Yeah. That's Tami too. You gotta call Tami out on that one.
Those are my eyes for sure.
Yeah, and the voices and the tapestry all around him. That's sound and love and the chanting of the ancestors.
Yeah, beautiful. So I was wondering, what do you hope? That's my favorite image. Wait, before I pause on my question, tell us about those lines on the face.
Well, when I was doing the book, I had done a book called Freedom River. It's written by Doreen Rappaport. It's about the a gentleman who freed slaves over a river, Kentucky, from Kentucky to Ohio, a free state, and the slaves escaped through a narrow passage in the river. So what I did is in that book, I painted these lines in everybody's faces to represent the river. And what it says to me in context of this book is we're all connected by the river. So that's what it is. We all are. If we can all touch and agree, there's a river that can connect every single one of us.
Yes.
So that's the flow that's happening of the past to the present and back to the past and all that stuff, to keep us connected because we know where we came from, so we know where we're going.
Oh yeah.
You know, so that's what that was about. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
I love it. That's my favorite. I'm just so happy that it made it onto the cover.
Oh yeah.
This is great. You pull the cover off and then you see that. Anyway, I'm curious about this. Like, what is our hope for this book for everyone? Like I know I have my desires and wishes for All Because You Matter, but what's your hope for this book?
My hope is simply that it becomes a centerpiece of conversation about how to navigate through this world and what's going on, and the importance, and my hope for the Black and brown children of the world, and all those all those marginalized people. You are as important, and you matter just like everybody else. And to have the conversations with everyone, from all races.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter what color you are, you still can be marginalized and discarded and not thought of and lost in this world.
Yeah.
So it's universal and ideas that we're talking about, and it applies to every single human being, to reassure them that they have a place. And This is a conversation and you can't outgrow it. Even if you're 80 years old, you can't outgrow a picture book. It's big. Exactly. It'll always be bigger.
Yes, for everyone.
Yes.
So, my hope is that readers, and especially adults in the education space, in the bookstore world, librarians, caregivers, I just would like to see adults put this book in every child's hand. I totally see the universality of it. Yes, I intended this to be for my son, but it's much bigger than that. I really think that our children are in a position to lead us forward. And in order for them to take over the world and our country, and do it with grace and empathy, it's important for them to start having these conversations now. It's important for us as adults to let them explore their curiosity. I don't let my son hold back. That's what this book has done for my son and I. He's now in a position where he's not afraid to ask me about something he either heard or saw on the internet. He's 10 now. I can't watch his every move, but this book has let him know that I value his opinion so much. I value what's on his mind so much that I never want him to feel as if he can't come to me and ask me, Mom, what's this? Mm-hmm. Why is this on the news? Or who is this person? Very much like when he first came to me about Dr. King. So this book, I believe, allows children to put their curiosity on full display. And as adults, it's on us to just sit back and just listen to them. Listen to what's in their heart, what's on their mind. We don't have to push anything on them. We can expose them to many things, books and things in the news. There's lots of ways to kind of filter these conversations. But in the end, just sit back and listen and let the children form their own opinion and their own friendships. And I think that's the ticket. That's what's going to really help our children grow and become these empathetic individuals. And they're going to take over the world. And I'm really excited about the possibility of that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm so excited about it. I mean, I've been telling the world about it. I know they're tired of seeing me post stuff and tell them about it because that's what I want to get it out there, and I think it's important, and it'll do good in the world.
Yeah.
And sort of navigate through what's happening to us now as well. Yeah. So now more than ever.
Yeah, it's Absolutely. Now more than ever. It's time for us all to come together and help each other rise. So
absolutely, and love each other.
Yeah, love on each other and help each other rise. And I think that is the ticket to all lives mattering.
Absolutely.
Let's make sure we're nurturing our children in such a way so that they do truly feel that. Mm-hmm. So I think it's time for Q&A.
Open it up. Let's see what they have to say.
How'd we do on time?
She's Hannah. Yep. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. One thing I wanted to throw out there is it's really cool that this one, with the sadness and everything that's happening in the background, his eyes are closed and he seems so sad in that one. And then this one with the prayers and all the thoughts, like you were saying, his eyes are open and he can see a world that is worth living in, that is worth engaging in. Anyway, I just thought that was really, really cool. Anyway, back down. So one question that I wanted to bring up, and before we hop right into the all the audience questions, is you guys were talking about how this book is really correlating with so many things that are happening right now, especially with everything that came up in June, late May, June, July, and what's still going on in our country and the conversations that are happening. But how did it feel to know that this wasn't coming out until the end of the year? How did it feel for that waiting time period?
Oh, I wanted this book out right away.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as the pandemic hit, I was like, we need this book.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of impatience on my end. I don't know about you, Bryan.
I was calling them all the time. Why don't we just push it up, push that date up and get that book out there? You know, we're losing time. You know, let's get it.
The kids are home right now.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Yeah, that's how I felt.
No, I agree. When I saw it on the shelf, I was like, this is amazing. Why didn't I have this 2 months ago?
Yeah.
No. So thank you guys for writing it. I'm a little sad it came out late, but I'm really glad that everyone has it now. Okay, let's go with this one. It is from Patrick, and he wants to know, Tami, do you have any advice for aspiring artists or aspiring writers? And Bryan, do you have any advice for aspiring artists, specifically in how they find inspiration when you sit to create new art and new collage art?
Tam, you go first.
Yeah, okay. First of all, Patrick, congrats on NaNoWriMo. I am a NaNoWriMo failure this year. So sad. I just can't get it together. I don't know. There's still time. Maybe I will like whip out a miracle and hit my goal. But any advice for writers? I actually do have some resources if you want to check them out. My website, shameless plug, but serious, these are like free resources just for you to download and take it all with a grain of sugar. You know, take what helps you and toss out what doesn't. But TamiWrites.com, if you click on, I think it's FAQ, and you just scroll down, I've got a whole list of resources, you know, to get you jump starting on, you know, your writing career. But I will say this, and there's lots of advice on those files that I have there. My biggest piece of advice, and this is really, really hard because even I struggle with this, is to find a way to keep your blinders on. You can still do that and celebrate other writers and illustrators because there's so many people I admire in this industry. But at times it can get very hard to look at another person's success and somehow measure that against how you're doing. You have to find those celebratory moments in everything that you do. If you write a page today, that deserves a party, you know, just as much as, you know, the author who may have won the Newbery, that also deserves a party. Like, you just need to keep your blinders on, stay focused on your own goal. Success comes in so many different shapes and sizes, and just try your best not to measure yours against someone else's, and do it in a way where you're grateful and you can still be happy and applaud other people in your industry. I will say, I used to be a teacher. I had a great experience, but this writing community, there are so many cheerleaders in the writing community. It's insane. I've never met people as supportive as I have than when I entered the writing community. So I do wish you all the luck.
Oh, that's wonderful. In terms of creating, I just stay true to who you are and create, and tell everybody you know what you want to do, your intentions, even if they don't want to hear it, because you never know who can open that door or connect you with somebody that could open a door for you to get you to another place, another level. Continue to work on your craft. Even though I've been painting for, I don't know, 37 years, I still work on the craft every single day, you know, and to get better, to try to find new ways of telling story and a sense of clarity in in what I'm trying to do, and then conquer new avenues. So it's always a learning experience. It's all those things, but you got to work. You got to one step in front of each other every single day.
Sounds like rehab.
Yeah, absolutely.
Work your steps.
To get it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was on your website, Bryan, and I was seeing that it took you a bit to be able to get into the publishing industry.
Yeah.
In that moment?
Oh, absolutely. When I decided I wanted to make a book, the first idea, I went to a publisher and I showed them the portfolio, and they said no. But I went to every publisher in New York City once a week for 7 years, and they said no, until somebody said yes. And now I don't know if I wore them down, but I knew I was coming back, even if it took another 7 years. But I would work that into my schedule every week. With a portfolio, I would go to a different publishing house in New York City. And sometimes I repeated the same ones in different times because I knew I could make a book. I just needed a shot at it. So I know what it's like to look from the outside trying to get in, and nobody's giving you straight answers necessarily, But eventually I knew that I could make a book, and somebody just has to take the time and stop for 1 second and see what I'm trying to say. So now I'm working on book number 42.
Oh.
So it can be done.
I know. Quick moment of I feel like that's something that we should celebrate. Just like Tami was saying, that deserves a little bit of a party.
Yeah.
Just book does. Just you guys getting out this book also deserves a party. I've decided that anything in the pandemic that's good deserves a party.
Yeah.
Next question for you guys. Also, Tami, do you want to talk about getting into the industry at all? I know that you were saying that you had cheerleaders, but do you want to talk about anything moments?
Oh, that's funny. So I think this might be the first time that I'm hearing that, Bryan, it took you 7 or 8 years.
7 years, yeah.
8 years for me. So I didn't know that. Yeah, 8 years of no. Nope. Nah, doesn't work for us. 8 years of form rejections. But I started to notice, in that final 8th year, those rejections started getting nicer, and I knew, and they said, when your rejections start to get nicer, you're on to something. And I thought that was just a lie or a joke, but it's true. So the first 7 years I was writing, critique groups are everything. I joined quite a few critique groups, both in person. Remember that? In person?
Yeah.
And online. I went to lots of conferences. I joined the SCBWI and Women Who Write. I went to all kinds of conferences, and I read. I cannot stress enough how much you need to read. I was told, if you want to write a picture book, you need to read at least 100 picture books. And I'm not talking about ones that were published in the 60s, the books that are being published now.
Yeah.
Because that's what the industry is looking for now. And really pay attention to the art. I didn't know that. I thought I had to explain everything. No, this is a collaborative process. When you have a picture book, you have to leave room for the artists to shine and do their thing. You don't need to explain everything in your writing, because the artist can also, tell a story with the art. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's a heavy part of my experience. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so a different question just came in, and we're going to hop back to the book for a moment, and actually both to your experiences. Do either of you have any thoughts on activities in a classroom that a teacher could hold through talking about this book, or any other ideas for that to incorporate the book into the content and curriculum?
Tami's the teacher.
So when I reached over, if you saw me, and I ripped part of it as I was reaching, I wasn't expecting the question, but I have a wall full of papers and stuff. So yes, the teacher in me does have an activity, one that I like to do virtually. I have yet to do this in person, but teachers, if you do Venn diagrams, here's an excellent example of something. I know the kids can do a much better job, and I know, Bryan, you certainly can. But the thing about a Venn diagram is it teaches children the very important skill of compare, contrast. So here in this Venn diagram, I've labeled one side I matter, where the kid can draw pictures or make collage of different pictures that shows that kid why that particular child matters, right? That little self-esteem boost that all children need. And then over here, they can write they matter. And in this part of the circle, here's where they can do a collage or draw pictures or even make little lists of, why is it that other people matter? And they, meaning their friends in class or maybe people in the community. Why is it that those people matter as well? And then right in the middle, we collectively, all of us, all backgrounds, all races. Why is it that we, meaning all of us, matter? And again, give the child an opportunity to showcase their art, their, whatever they want to put in there. For me, I just put future. The reason why we all matter is because we need to make sure that we have a good future for all of us, especially for our children. So I think a Venn diagram, mine is not so good, and I ripped it when when I went to grab it. Now I have to make a new one. But I think this could be like a good conversation starter in class. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, for me, Hannah.
Sorry. You said that you wanted conversation about the book. And so what types of conversation, do you have any questions that you might ask kids when they're reading through the book?
Well, for me, I welcome the questions that the kids will ask.
Yeah.
Those questions that, people shy away from. This is the place in the safe space. This book creates a safe space for those kind of questions about what do they mean when they say Black Lives Matter?
Yeah.
When you have those questions, because they'll see an image of that in the book, at the very end. They'll see what Christopher's watching on TV with his grandpa. And you'll say, well, what does that mean? And then you can sit down and talk and have that explanation. Well, this has happened so blatantly. There's a cry in the community of change that we need, of police brutality or whatever the issue is. And you can have a real conversation about it.
About actual lives.
Yes.
And these could be your friends, right? Like if it's a child who isn't from a BIPOC community who would ask that, it's probable that child has a friend who is Black.
Exactly.
So I would ask that child, well, if, so-and-so is your friend, do you think he's important?
Absolutely.
What do you think about your friend? Do you think that your friend's life matters? Do you think there's lots of ways to do it? And as a former teacher, I would definitely make sure that my words come from a loving place. I would be very sensitive about how I, form my questions, but the kids get it, man. The kids are all right. They're the ones who are, when they were in school, but they're the ones who have this empathy, and it's on us to make sure that continues. We have to lift them up and continue to build it for them. My kid will play with anyone. I'm sure your kids are the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
My kid makes friends with anyone. He doesn't care. It doesn't matter as long as they're respectful.
Yes.
And have a good time together.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of different things that have been brought up a couple of times, is that kindness and respect and caring are what creates friendships and relationships. And without those, we can't have this. It's hard to have this when we don't have those. Does that make sense? Is what I'm saying making sense?
You're making
sense. So let's go with another question from the audience. Let's go with one from Sabrina. She actually has 3 different questions and they're all really good. So I'm trying to come up with a way to say them kind of in a together way, but let's go with this. Was there any moments in this process that you learned from while you're making this book that you will carry into future projects?
Ooh. Well, oh, wow. Sabrina.
I know.
anything that I learned from, you know, I'll dial back to what I said before, is I knew stepping into this project, first of all, let me just say that authors typically do not get to choose or ask for their illustrator. It's just kind of, you can throw it out there, oh, I love this person's work, but there may be a chance, there's usually always a chance that you don't get who you've kind of brought up in conversation. This was a very different situation, because I dreamt of this book, and in my dream I saw Bryan's art, and I knew it was his art because I'm a fan. So he just has that style where it's like, oh, that's a Bryan Collier piece, you know. So if anything I've learned in the editing process, let me fix this, or let me change that, or let me take this out so that Bryan can tell his story. I didn't know that Bryan's grandmother was a quilt maker. Had I not did what I needed to do with the text, he wouldn't have been able to tell that story. So it's very important for, you know, the writer to kind of think ahead and really leave space for the legend to do what they're known for.
Ooh.
So that's what I learned.
Okay. Well, for me, this is a tall mountain to climb, and but what it does after the whole process is done, it just reinforces the idea is that we need to start climbing some high mountains. That meaning we can't shy away from any topic, you know.
Even in picture books.
Yes, even in picture books, even if it hasn't been done or it's a difficult subject to navigate, it's touchy, it's just a tall mountain and you got to climb it. And what this book says to me after I'm done with it and everything, you can climb some tall mountains. It reinforces that confidence to be able to tackle hard decisions, all kinds of issues, and tell the truth in it. And it's going to turn out okay.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad that you both tackled this, and I'm going to have a moment of being honest. Like, I am not part of the people of color, Black, brown community, but when I saw this, I was like, this is what my customers need. And I'm so glad that it's here.
Mm-hmm.
Bingo, that's the reaction we wanted.
Absolutely.
Next question is going to come from Naomi, and it might be one of our last questions. We might do one more after this, but then we're going to start wrapping up. Does that sound good, guys? Sounds good. Okay. So she wants to know, well, first she wants to compliment you, as you should be. Such a beautiful book. Do you have any favorite authors or books that inspired you along the journey to create this one?
Yeah.
Oh, well, Bryan probably knows my answer to this already. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I write in multiple spaces. I write picture books, middle grade, and YA. Every time I sit to write a picture book, Bryan knows that I pull out Dave the Potter. That is my favorite picture book. So yeah, I'm really like giving you a lot of shine here today, Bryan, but I mean it. Like,
I appreciate it.
so like, if I were to say like who inspired me on the journey to write this book, it for sure was Bryan Collier. Also, on the author end of that, my other favorite picture book is called Drum Dream Girl by Margarita Engel and Rafael Lopez. I love that book. I love the words. I love the art. It's a song. So when I set out to write this book, as I do with mostly all my picture books, I pulled those two books out. And how crazy is it that I actually got to work with Bryan for this book? I'm lucky.
That's amazing.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Bryan?
Thank you. Oh, I've been inspired by so many artists out there. One in particular, in terms of picture books, Tom Phelan's Middle Passage, Truth Teller, you know, and Power and Potent. It's so powerful. It's a wordless book, but it's so powerful imagery wise. And in terms of writers, like in Tami's work, it's musical. The musicality of the text, the way it dances and bounces, is one of the attractions. And other writers, like, you know, we mentioned Jacqueline Woodson
Yeah.
earlier, and Nikki Giovanni. How about her? I work with her as well. You know, one of my most favorite writers and authors to work with. Again, that musicality and the bounce is what I'm really interested in as well.
Shoot, there we go. Yes, I'm back. That's my chair. I keep rolling away so that I mute it so you don't have to hear me roll around every time. So then with this book though, when I opened it, it's the poetry that all of a sudden engaged me into all of a sudden being fixed in place. And then it was the art that really made it so that I could see what was happening in a way that was just stunningly beautiful. Does that make any sense? But it was poetry throughout this book. Good.
Yeah, that
okay.
lyrical.
Last question before we start wrapping it up, and that is going to be, Sabrina has really good ones. So
she does.
I'm like, oh, okay. Let's do this one. Just throw one or two ideas that if you guys were to collaborate, what would be a theme or a person or something that you would want to explore? Just like one or two quick thoughts.
The next one, Tami.
Yeah. So I, in a perfect world, Bryan and I would not be done yet. I think there are more stories to tell. I think there's a way to really amplify this and bring it full circle, very much like how Bryan challenges children to read it back to adults. I think that is something worth exploring in a picture book that dovetails nicely with this. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. Maybe.
My spirit is wide open for that.
Yeah, right. My soul is ready for that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, what about you, Bryan?
Well, I can you know, follow up with Tami. I mean, I'm looking forward to our next project together. I'm looking forward to tackling. I'm open to go any direction. I want to be nimble and as fluid as possible. That's why I work every day on my craft, just to be that way. So I'm open to go any direction, up or down or sideways, whatever way we need to go to get it, and explore new ways of creating. I don't only just do collage. I paint in oil paintings, or I can do charcoal drawings, and the color for me is a character. The light in the book, the way the light hits the characters, that's another character within the book it's unspoken, but it's there. So I play with light and color and shadow as a character. So I use everything I can to tell the story.
Yeah. Actually, that's my favorite part of your illustrations, is the way that light hits faces. Yeah. No, it's interesting to hear you bring that up there. Anyway, so thank you guys so much for everything that you guys have talked about today. I think that this was amazing, and I hope that schools really got so much out of this. I think that they did. And quick couple things. At the bottom, there's that chat, so you can always pull it up and be able to buy the book of Politics and Prose. So hop on that. And then the next thing is, you can follow us at Kids in Prose for social media across the board. So always be willing to do that. And you'll be able to see events that are just like this one that are coming up in the future. Well, they won't be just like it, but they'll be quite similar. That's it, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bryan. Thank you, Tami, for your time.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
That's it. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hi, Tami.